Hello, this is the Cat's Library, and I will be your librarian today. In this week's video, I'm going to be drawing sprites for my YouTube channel. For these drawings, I wanted to redesign an original alien species for a story that I've been working on sporadically that I want to turn into a series of novels someday. I never really came up with a name for them because that usually comes last, and so in previous drawings of them I referred to them as the Gem People or the Sparklies. However, since this video was coming out, I decided to find a name for them to present to everyone. I did a bunch of research into the names and associated words, and then I asked my sister and she said to call them the Vartican, which was a completely made-up word that just sounded cool. So they are henceforth known as the Vartican, at least in the Prime language. I really want to go crazy with the world building, so there might be multiple words for what their species is called, but this is what the main characters would call them. This is a carnivorous species, and unlike humans who like to live in groups, they're more psychologically primed to live alone. In their prehistoric era, a young Vartican would strike out on their own and in their mid to late teens. If they had a sibling or a close friend, they would make a pack of 2 to 3 people who would spend the day hunting alone and then come back home at night to defend each other from threats before starting the cycle anew. Vartican have loud calls, not unlike a lion's roar, which can spread miles, and they have an archaic language using these calls, which ancient people used to communicate over vast distances. It took them longer than most species in the planetary sector to form towns, and they never formed their own agriculture because they can't really eat plants. However, once they did start to form towns, their technology progressed at an incredibly fast rate. Think cavemen to ancient Greek fast, not cavemen to space travel fast. The Vartican never developed their own form of space travel, but that goes into story stuff that I haven't completely figured out yet. They have 6 eyes. Each set is only able to see one color, which meld together into the full color spectrum. I haven't decided why they are such bright colors, but currently I think it's because the plants and the rocks are bright. They are egg-laying mammals, as are the majority of mammals on the planet. They can run 30 miles an hour at full sprint, but they have next to no endurance. In this portion of the screen recording, I decided that I wanted to have more realistic proportions, and so I drew up a quick human to see what a human in comparison with a Vartican female would look like, and then it devolved into a full-on study into what human proportions are like. I wasn't sure whether to make her 6 heads tall or to make her 7.5 heads tall. So I started out doing it at around 6 heads tall, and then that didn't look right, and so I added in to 8 feet so that it could be 7.5, because that is what my studies were telling me was true, and I had to change the head size to be the correct size for what I was saying, how many heads it was. I drew some straight lines so that I could see where each part of the body would go on the head scale. I've been working on drawing female characters who actually look more like females, so I made a very distinct torso area where it goes from the rib cage to the hips. I added in details like making the feet flatter and adding in the hands and arms, which I still need to do a study on how arms work. And I also made the body 3 heads wide, which is normal human proportion. After I was done deciding what human proportions actually are, I went over to my other sketch of the Vartican, and I matched her proportions with the human proportions, even though I had a feeling that I was going to change them again later to make her more alien looking. Even from the get-go, you can see that I made her proportions skinnier than the average human to make her live and fast looking. I decided to make them shorter than the average human with a larger head. I still wasn't sure about what color scheme I wanted for my particular character that's going to be my persona for my videos, so I went back to an old classic for these other characters that I had. I keep going back and forth about whether they should have a tail, and for this one I decided that they should have a short tail. I practiced a few different extreme expressions with the 6 eyes and cat mouth and decided on an ear type. I was sick last week, which was one of the reasons this was so late, and in my fog brain I deleted the footage of me drawing the sketch for the sprites. For the first expression that I drew, I did a closed mouth half smile because that is an expression that I usually do in real life. I also gave her shoulder length, curly-ish, curly wavy hair because that is the hair texture that I have. One of my favorite details about this expression is that one of the eyes has closed where her mouth is smiling up. I started out with the colors with a seafoam green because that is one of my favorite colors, and I started to try to give her a lavender and then a gold skin tone before going to a dark blue temporarily and giving a dark green shirt because those are some of my favorite colors. I didn't want these to look too much like the Na'vi from Avatar, and I think I found a scheme of my favorite colors that doesn't look too much like them. I made sure that all of the colors were inside of the lines, and then I experimented a little bit with shading before remembering that I didn't want to add shading to every picture that I did. After that, I took all of my layers and I added them into a new document so that each sprite layer would be on its own JPEG document so that I could more easily import them into Camtasia. I changed the image to look from left to right because I wanted to be different, I guess. Also, text is left to right, and this flows better with the library theme. For this next expression, I did an open mouth expression because one of them had to have an open mouth because I talk a lot. Since I had a flattened layer of what the first expression was, I drew the open mouth on the layer above of it. Since this is a carnivorous species, I gave her some nice sharp cat-inspired teeth. And I also added a black outline to them because they didn't seem to look like the rest of the face without them. This next expression required a bit more paint over than the other one did. The other one I had the eyes basically in the same position. This one I wanted to change up a lot about what the original drawing was so that there was a lot more variation when I switched between different sprites. So I painted over almost completely and changed one eye from being closed to open, and I changed another eye from being a more squinting shape to being more open. I also wanted to change the ear so that the ear would go down because I really like that in character design when you can express things with the ears. I had some trouble with the hair right there that was around the ears because I sort of thought it might be interesting to have hair in different positions depending on what the expression was, except when I tried it out later to switch between the frames, then it didn't make as much sense that there would be that much hair that would just go down just by her putting her ear down. And I changed the hair on the other side, and I made it straight behind her shoulder instead of in front of it, and that seemed to be enough of a change. And it was a little bit less distracting than to have that much hair just suddenly falling in front of the ear. So I erased it and made it look a little bit more like the other sprite. The internet gave me the wrong dimensions for my editing software, and so I had to put in some sky background behind it. It looks pretty good though, so I might keep it. What do you guys think? Psalm 139:14, New International Version. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well.